for those of you who don't know what happened to me is I was asleep until 2020. And 2020 COVID hit. My kids were a little older and my mom responsibilities were dialed down. My patients didn't want to come and see me because they were afraid of COVID. So I had a lot of free time. I did Bob Monroe's Gateway experience and something happened. I actually surrendered. I asked for help to heal, and I was in my hammock in the backyard, and some frequency came into my belly, mucked around, and left. And my friend came over who can see things, and she's like, what's going on with this woman's belly? But what happened after that is I started to feel people's pain. When you put acupuncture needles in, I would ask my patients, does point A or point B hurt? Sometime in the fall of 2020, I was like, ow, I know what point hurts. And then my Rolfer friend, who's amazing, handed me some craniosacral books, and I began to feel blockages in people's energy fields, and I started doing some biodynamic craniosacral stuff. And I'm an avid reader, and so I read as many energy books as I could get, read the craniosacral books, started playing with craniosacral energy, and then in 2022, a person I had just met said, you're gonna tell my friend when to lie down and you're gonna remote heal her. And I'm like, are you crazy? And I did it. I could feel her childhood, and she healed. And all this is like, I don't know how I'm doing this. I'm just walking through the door. As I came, as the doors opened, I said, walk through. I grew up a free lunch kid, and without the people who would have offered me, like, hey, maybe you should go to this college, I wouldn't have gone to college. My dad didn't go to high school. And so I was used to walking through doors, and I just kept walking through them, and I started blogging because I got told start a second website because you have to keep the woo-woo separate from your medical practice website. So I started Brighten All Souls, and I wanted people to write about their healing stories, and nobody wants to do that. So I started blogging about the healing stories that were happening on my table, and then the downloads I was getting as I was open to our consciousness, God consciousness. And then in 2024, when Jen asked me to speak, I'm like, I should have a book. And all the blogs I had written are my book. A little doctored up, but they're pretty powerful. They're just hard to get through. So the point of that story is I kind of awoke from 2020 to 2024 really rapidly and had a book written. And the thing is, what I want you guys to understand is that we all need to awaken to that level, because what's going to happen is people are going to awaken in 6 to 12 months. And when we own who we are, we can help them wake up fast and not freak out. I mean, I still do freak out. I just freaked out, a week ago because I was watching this show called Sense8, and in the show, one of 8 people is strangled, and all 8 can feel that. And I know that's where we're going. So we are going to be able to feel, read each other's thoughts and feel what everybody feels if you choose to. You don't have to. But I do think what's happening is we're moving towards God consciousness again. And this is my slide. This is the best representation of God, or one of the best, that I've found. To me, God is the middle. It's peace. God is just all energy ever created in all time. And if you can't say that word, I couldn't say that word 2 years ago. Say the divine. Say nature. One of my patients, it's the great mystery. One of my patients, it was boobs, because I asked him to go home and find what made his brain shut off, and he came back and was like, Doc, it's boobs. I'm like, okay, dude, whatever. It's nature now, thank God. But anyway, but it was he was tapping into his divine feminine, right? I mean, his mind shut off. But God is just peace. It's all energy ever created. And the gray in there is our collective thought. All paths to God are divine. Everything you have ever done has been divine. You have never done anything right or wrong. It's all just part of our experience feeding back into God. And then that explodes and creates our souls, our journeys, your lunch, whatever you need, you create it daily. And so we have forgotten that we are God. And so we create disease, and We create people who might be a quote unquote nightmare in our journey. But we do that because when we get uncomfortable, what do? We go for searching for how to heal or how to get through the uncomfortableness. And in that, sometimes we not only go searching for the emotion that you're currently in, but you're going searching for that emotion in you in all timelines and all dimensions. And you can heal in all timelines, in all dimensions. When you choose to, when you step in that pile of bullshit you're gonna step in today, if you're like, okay, that's manure, and I can learn to grow from that. If you just wanna scrape it off your shoe and shove it away, you can, but know that you're gonna store that somewhere in your body, and it's gonna manifest as a disease. So this last night and this morning, and we're all gonna play healing because everyone is essential to this game. I have a sore throat, and I'm working through, okay, that means you're afraid to speak your truth, because I got some crazy stories. But I want you guys to help me heal my throat today, because we're all God. And it's not like you have to do anything. You just have to be you. And we can connect. I believe there's a little photon inside of us I call the God particle. And when you surrender your mind to that, they connect and we instantaneously heal. But I'm going to go through the other ways, or some of the other ways that we heal that I've come up with or just realized in the past 4 or 5 years since I've been playing healer plus MD. And I will say that this week I have a patient who comes in for acupuncture. She doesn't like any of the energy therapy because she got such bad vertigo one day I had to drive her home. And she really is stuck in her victimhood. So at the beginning of the week, I had to write her a script for a UTI. So she got an antibiotic, which I consider a Band-Aid, because she won't heal her fear. And if that's where you're at, that's where you're at. That's fine. But when you're ready to heal your fear, you won't need the antibiotic for the UTI, because you'll go, oh, I'm afraid I gotta heal that today. Or you won't get the UTI because you won't have any fear. So your body won't be manifesting a disease to point you to a place where you're afraid. All right, so let me get these slides. This is who we truly are. We are the cosmos. I see each of you as a star in me. And when I work on my healing, I'm connecting with you and healing you. Why do I see that? One of my patients was molested by her grandfather. She was doing Kundalini yoga. This poor woman couldn't even lay on her left side, because I guess that's how the trauma happened. She was doing Kundalini yoga. She came in my office and she's like, he's here. And so is my cousin who he molested. And he probably molested, and she killed herself. So they're in the room. I'm new to this game. I'm freaking out. But I believe in a pre-life planning. I believe in, if you wanted to really own a 10 out of 10 forgiveness, you would have asked, Michael Newton says, the 100 souls that you continually come to the planet with, like, hey, I want to own a 10 out of 10 forgiveness. Who's going to do that? And all those souls are like, no, but you're begging. And somebody finally caves and said, I will do it because I'll work on self-forgiveness, and I'll do this for you, because last lifetime you did 8 out of 10. This one you're going for 10 out of 10. So let's go. And at that point in time, I was, I'd read the healing books. I didn't know what I'm doing. I'm channeling the void through my heart chakra. And this woman, while she was on the table, calmed her down, said, if he's here to help you, watched her grandfather turn into a star. And I had so much love pour through my heart, that star, into her. I cried for 3 days, and she healed. And then I was doing yoga, and I believe even Hitler, that's a hard one, is really, like, we are just coming to collect emotions. We are just coming to because our emotions are really, really powerful. Master Qin Yulin was talking about when he grew up in communist China, and he was angry there's a war going on. He took his hands off the steering wheel, like, and his engine block cracked. And somebody was just telling me another powerful friend who is getting worked up for cancer, and the first CT scan she was on, the power on the CT scan went down. The second time, the power in the grid in the area went down, because she was that afraid of getting diagnosed with a cancer. So this is the power, and you guys all know. I mean, you hear the stories of people who have someone trapped in their car and they lift it up. What if we're coming to Earth to collect the power of our emotions to feed back into God, because that's how we're creating. What if that's all we're doing here? So we have to experience dark and light. So we don't have to. I think we're coming to the place where we're going to experience just light connected, but to wake us up, that dark is important. So thus her grandfather turned into a star, and I was doing yoga one day, and when you do yoga with Dr. Sue Morter, like, maybe dimensions appear to you while you're in yoga class. And so there was this kind of yellow, dimension off the side, and I didn't know what it was, and eventually it came in and said, we are all of the frequencies of our soul that masked our light so everyone could wake up. And we want to be part of you because you're sharing such an important message. So look to the person to your right and left and realize they are a star inside of you, okay? Okay, it generally gives me half an hour or so, and half an hour I'm trying to heal you and teach you lots. So, so I want to say this prayer because I want you to understand how important you are to our soul healing. So I'll say it, and just be with me in my voice. Come home. I am here within. I am your soul, your friend speaking to you. I am the soulmate you yearn for. She, he, whom you have been seeking outside of yourself is actually deep within. I am here within you, not separate from you, but one with you. Come home, move inward, for this is where you will meet me, and all the longing of yesterday will cease to be. For what you have been seeking has been within you all along. And so that's my friend Finbar Ross. That is in his book, Author is Unknown. And I am taking a trip to India with Finbar in February, co-hosting the trip. He's doing all the work. I just have to talk. And if you're interested, join me. Okay, you guys, disease, again, is a map of our fears, our fears, because there's only one soul here. So when you choose to heal one of your fears, you are offering that frequency in all time and all dimensions to the rest of our soul. No pressure. I call these ouchies because my favorite age to play Earth in is 4. Because a 4-year-old doesn't have a belief system that limits their ability to play magic. A 4-year-old just loves you. So I play Earth as 4 most of the time. Okay, so I'm trained in acupuncture also, so acupuncture will say you have a wind disease, you have a damp heat, but I really do think that all of our disease is caused by emotions that we refuse to deal with. And so if you have heart disease, hypertension, and stroke, you may have a lack of joy, grief, anger, or a need to control. And these are a mix of mine and Louise Hay's ideas. I just had a patient come in who is 40, and she was blaming the COVID shot for palpitations and hypertension. She really didn't want to get it. She felt she was forced into get it. It's her reality. She was blaming that. And she came in one day and she said, I just had a panic attack. She was having panic attacks too. And I had it when I was driving my kid to golf. And she wasn't driving, her husband was. But I said, and she said, it always happens on that, when I drive my kid to golf. And I sort of in the back of my mind, I remembered she was in a car accident. And so I said, well, is it the same road you were in the car accident on? And she said, she thought about it, she said, yes. I said, well, what happened in the car accident? She said, I was 17, and my family was T-boned by an old white man, the back of the car, and then he drove off. And when the cops found him, they said, oh, he has cancer, so, too bad. And I asked if anybody had gotten hurt in the car, and she's Hispanic, and this is an old white man, maybe the mayor of our town. He was convicted of drunk driving. Maybe the cops were protecting the mayor. But she was still angry because she said, it's not right. And I said, well, if you can see this bigger picture of we are all here to kind of teach each other lessons, can you please can you try to have compassion for this guy? No, it's not right. I'm a right and wrong person. No, I can't have compassion. This isn't right. And so I don't even know what I said. Somehow I said, well, can you just relax and try a little and zoom out a little? And then what happened was I realized, I'm like, oh, I said, God, isn't it really hard to be right all the time? And she said, yeah. So she realized that her needing to be right, because she needed to be on the side of right, was exhausting. And at the end of that visit, and then she could zoom out and have compassion for the guy that hit her and the cops that let him off. And by the end of the visit, her hypertension was gone. Her palpitations were gone. All it was that anger. And also the fear that she wasn't going to be right. Do you understand? Like, you don't need an antihypertensive. You just need to let go of anger. And then diabetes is rumination, regret, and sorrow. Cancer, what is eating you alive? I had a patient who had breast cancer, knew one of my friends, healed it, came back. It was everywhere. And she called me, and she's a healer. And I said, well, what's eating you alive? And same, this is a common theme in when you're healing people. Her father molested her, never took credit for it. And she said, I've forgiven him. I don't want to see him again. He was still alive, but I've forgiven him. And I said, well, that's great. If you truly have forgiven him, you might want to see him again, but it's okay. And then also I find people who have been molested, they can't be wrong. Same thing. Because if they're wrong, that molestation was their fault. And they also are constantly seeking external validation to make sure they're right. She was one of these people that she was like, no, I can't be wrong. I get in a fight with everyone. I don't have any friends because I will fight tooth and nail to prove I'm right, even though when I know I'm not. And so a couple days later, she kind of examined that. She said she had an epiphany and she didn't need to be right anymore. And what she did, and this is another important thing I think in healing, is that she's blaming all these people for her unhappiness. She said she pulled the blame back in, right? She pulled her energy back in. And so she did that over a couple of days and pulled it back in, and she went to go see her dad. And she didn't care anymore. She didn't care that he didn't acknowledge it. She just didn't care. Her heart was more open because of all the energy she spent in hate. She pulled it back in and loved open her heart. And then a couple weeks later, she's a Joe Dispenza fan. In fact, I love healers because she's like, I went to Joe Dispenza. I spent the week there. My cancer wasn't gone. What's wrong with me? Because people heal, right? And so she, again, after pulling that blame back in, after a couple weeks, she's like, I've been working really hard and I'm not doing that anymore. And Joe's a big guy. If you get out of bed and you get out of bed in the same vibration, you're going to have the same frequency, the same life. And so she got out of bed in the same vibration. She's like, I'm not the person I was 2 weeks ago. I'm pulling my blame back in. She said, I went back to bed. And when she got out of bed the second time, a big, bright, white light of God was in her pelvis, and boom, done. She's healed. So again, do you understand? If you're leaving all of this anger out here, it is not in you maintaining your body. And when she pulled it back in, a bright white light in her pelvis appeared, and she was healed. Okay, kidney diseases, dementia, regret. Okay, this is why, again, you guys, if you can learn to love yourself, you have no regrets. Because if you love who you are today, even if you know, number one, you're perfect as is, but if you think in 3D definition, you're not perfect, that's great. Because what you're doing is you're like, I love who I am, but every day I'm gonna love myself more. I'm gonna understand, I'm gonna have more compassion, more kindness. I'm gonna love open so I can hold a frequency of love for other people to do the same. If you are in a place where you love yourself, don't ever have regret. Because everything you ever did, don't have shame. Everything you ever did has gotten you to the place you're at. And everything that you have shame and regret over has made you a better person. So let it go. Okay, so love yourself every day, and then you won't get dementia. And again, the Dr. Mind explanation for that is, if you're in a regret loop every day, you're not using the rest of your brain. So of course you're gonna get dementia. And liver diseases are just anger, and obesity to me, and this one took me a long time, my arrogant little doctor ass. Learned, it really did take me a long time, because people come in and like, I don't eat those calories, doc. I don't eat those calories. And at first I didn't really believe them, But as I got older and maybe a little wiser, I started to believe them. And to me, obesity is like you are stuck in, I am so not enough. And you just, it's just a sadness and it's like a depression and you just never feel enough. So again, as you work on loving yourself and recalling your energy back in, obesity will fade away. All right, okay. Fear, you guys, is your wisest guide because it takes you to the places you need to go to realize how beautiful you are. So this one came to me, and this is a picture of an eclipse, and it's just an example of, you know, when there's an eclipse, you can imagine before we knew the science behind it, everyone would be like, oh my God, the sun is disappearing. But the last eclipse, what was beautiful to me, the one, not necessarily the one I got this picture, but I realized that the world is coming together to watch this amazing feat happen. And so how can, you know, the loss of the sun be bad? We're coming together in the dark and we're going, okay, what is going to come out of this light? And so when I was writing this book on a timeline, I woke up and I had a really, really bad ear pain, like out of the blue. I couldn't move my jaw. It was so painful. I'm like, my eardrum's going to rupture. And I said, I don't have time for this. and the doctor and me said, you have COVID, but I didn't want to have COVID because I didn't have time. I'm on a deadline. I'm traveling. And you know, in Eastern medicine and TCM, your ears are fear. So I said, we're going to fix this. I want to know what I'm afraid of. So I went and lie outside on my swing in the sun. It was summertime. And I said, come on, what are we afraid of? And what I heard in my head was, if you don't shut that kid up, I'm going to throw her down the stairs. When I pissed my mother off once, because I'm very independent ever since 2.5. And I didn't have a great relationship with her. I've healed my heart since then. But I guess when I was 6 months old, my father, who didn't go to high school, that may have been the time he lost his job. I was screaming in the middle of the night with ear infection. My mother was holding me, and he said, if you don't shut that kid up, I'm going to throw her down the steps. So I went to, I don't remember this, okay? But I imagined what that would have been like. And so I went back into that 6-month-old body, and I'm like, all right, come on, we got to heal your fear. You got to write this book. And so, and then just, you know, I'm like, I felt maybe my fear. I'm old, so I don't know that I had much of it, but I felt my mother's fear. And then I felt my father's fear. You know, I felt like maybe that's when he lost his job and he's got, you know, 2 kids to support. And so what happened is I opened up and I loved into that frequency. And as I did that, I realized, I'm like, oh my God, the abuse that and it wasn't horrible. And my father's threats were worse than his follow through. But the abuse and, you know, I'm a child of the 70s. We were all neglected, right? I mean, it's like, go play. But the abuse that I endured allowed me at 2.5 to piss off my mother saying, you have always been so independent. And at 4, I really knew at 4, there's a better way to play Earth. I mean, I knew my parents were limited in their ability to play Earth. But what I realized that day is if that hadn't been my childhood, I wouldn't have been able to wake up at 50, not know what's going on, still keep walking through these doors going, this shit's crazy, but it's kind of fun, so let's play. and then write a book and then be here talking to you about how we heal. If I had had parents that said, this is a really nice way to play Earth, let's just do it this way. Like, why would I have, you know, gone into a different way to play Earth? So I realized that fear is our wisest guide, and that abuse was a profound form of love because it let me be who I am today. And if you guys can get that bigger lens picture, one of my patients one time, I don't know what frequency she was in, but I'm like, just take that lens off. And she's like, oh yeah, I took it off and kicked it across the room. I put the love lens on because you can do that. All right. So this, in addition to disease, you know, the people that we come in that poke us are just mirrors into what we need to work through. This picture was taken in Italy. The woman that designed this whole place called the Tarot Garden, it's outside of, I think, Livorno or Tuscany. These mirrors are the ceiling of this alien. You can go in the alien, and boy, that's a trippy experience if you go to the tarot garden. But this woman was sexually molested by her father and abused by her mother. And again, that abuse, I think you leave this world. You get a bigger picture of what's possible because it's so painful to be here. And when you heal it, you can bring the bigger picture in. And this is exactly what this woman did. I mean, this tarot garden is trippy and awesome and expanding and beautiful. This is who we are, guys. I think we're one soul. And you're all one of these colors, one of these fractals. And when you choose yourself to love open, we are way more beautiful. And we can play God very powerfully together. So if you can take anything from this lecture, just love yourself. And this was Tahoe. I live in Tahoe, and I couldn't even believe I was getting this picture. So I went down in the water and brought it back up. These are my babies, because when you love yourself open, you can play Earth like a 4-year-old. And there's just an example, like if you can play Earth through the eyes of an innocent child who just wants to love, it's way more fun. All right, and these are the things that we trap ourselves in. We will say, nope, I don't want to clean up that pile of bullshit today, so I'm going to just play victim. And it's much easier. Everyone will feel sorry for me, and I'll get their energy, and it's great, but it's not, because you'll manifest more and more and more disease. So instead of playing victim, choose to play discovery of the power of your light, and then share it. Well, you can play the martyr. I'm going to take the weight of the world on my shoulders. I'm here to, this is the thing about finding your purpose. If you solidify yourself into one purpose, you're going to be limiting. If every day or every second you're like, what's my purpose this second? It might just be smiling at someone in the grocery store. It doesn't have to be bigger than that. But the martyrs are, I'm going to save the world. So you love the world so much you take the weight of the world on your shoulders and take over the show until no one can take the weight of the world chronically. You crumble. So instead of doing that, pull in all of your ouchies and discover your totality daily, and then offer your gifts without attachment. Bleeding empaths, you want to take others' pain away by giving your light away. Like, I'll take it for you, I'll take it for you. And you can do that, but if you do that, take it and pull it back in and put it in another dimension. Don't retain it. How much time do we have, Jen? 10 minutes. All right. So I'm going to try to heal my throat. I'm going to tell you a story of what happened over.
and you want to take questions for last 10 minutes.
I wanted to do a healing, but we're going to do a healing right now.
Right.
Yeah. So that's just, and the healing's going to be a story. Okay. So you can hold hands if you want to. Just take a deep breath. And I want you to imagine, like, okay, here's the deal. When I want to create something, I take the thought and I put the thought into the empty. And that way it's surrendered into the empty. And if the empty thinks it's a great idea, it gets created. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I'm not upset about it because I'm not God. I am, but I'm not. I don't understand the whole frequency of God. So over Easter weekend, I wanted to understand the capacity of our soul. So I took my mind. So I want you to take my mind, your mind, our mind, and just let it drop into your belly. And just let it be, see if you can imagine it as a whisper, some sort of floaty little thing. I imagine as like a little stream of a waterfall, white ball dropped into my belly. And now again, you want to know what the whole of our soul feels like, right? So that little wisp comes down, and then all of a sudden, boom, everyone else's soul comes into the waterfall. And now you've got this beautiful waterfall of collective consciousness. And you can see that everyone's path down that waterfall into collective consciousness has been divine. There's no evil. There's no right, there's no wrong. There's just this beautiful witness of our journey on Earth and in other dimensions. And then that pool of collective consciousness kind of drops down into the seed of creation. And when you surrender, you are that seed. And that seed is in you. And you create your reality, your frequency, your beautiful fractal of light with that seed. So just let it germinate. and just really see everything you've ever experienced and everything you've ever known. It's all collective consciousness. It's all going down back into God. Then forget everything you've ever known and just open your heart, open your heart, open your heart. Keep opening. Open so wide you feel our collective heart in that seat. Keep opening. There it is. Now let our collective heart love you so much. You create every day with our collective heart. Boom. There it is. That is how we love our soul. Every day we're creating with our collective heart if we just remember how divine everyone's path is. Okay, you guys slowly come back. And now look at each other again and see the star and the divine seed in the person you're sitting next to. And see how differently you see them now than you did when we started this. Okay? So that's what happened to me on Easter this year when I drew the Ascension card, and I'm like, I'm gonna play Jesus for the day. I didn't know how to play Jesus, but that is what happened. Okay? So that's the bleeding empath is like, again, receive so you have something to share. The perfectionist, just know you've never done anything right or wrong. We are all just collecting energy to create new ways to love. That's all we're doing. And if you have something you regret, great, you created a new way to love because you've got the divine seed inside of you. The helicopters that take over control from someone else. I had a patient who, I don't know that she was playing helicopter, she may have been bleeding empath, but her daughter was a drug addict. The second she cut her kid off, the kid astral body came into her car 20 minutes later and said, Mom, thank you, I can heal now. She was trying to prevent the kid from healing and to try to save her. The kid, her lesson was back off. And I'll tell you, if I am doing healing on a patient and I'm like, this is how it should go. Oh, no. My hands start hurting. And I know, nope, you're forcing. Stop. You open up the door, but let the patient receive what they're ready for. You never want to take away their journey because in their pain and suffering might come this amazing epiphany of love. You can't do it for them. And then passive-aggressive tyrants, have your angergasms, and then remember to light your fractal first. Find pleasure. Shields, well, God, this is one we're all good at. I mean, I was told, you got to open your heart more. I'm like, by Archangel Michael. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me, Michael? Like, I'm telling everyone I love them. And again, this is about, going back, because if you're a victim of abuse, you don't really blame the abuser. You blame the person that didn't prevent it. But I did go back and open up my heart more. And I will tell you, I'm very much happier. And then divas, if you think you're going to just play one role, you've got plenty. So open up the spectrum and receive so you can play more roles. If you are a prince or princess, remember you're actually a king or queen. And the king or queen actually is here to serve. Not at the expense of the bleeding empath, but you're serving by loving yourself and creating your note and then sharing it as part of that light. And if you're a child and you're Peter Pan, if you're playing life with love, great, but if you're just afraid to change, change. We're not supposed to stay the same. This is just a picture again of our totality. I think as our tree grows and the leaves sprout from the tree, you regrow roots and you're just in a constant cycle of rebirth. The dark is just as powerful as the light. And then I probably don't have time for my will and wisdom, but basically, I go back to the story of knowledge versus wisdom. And knowledge is like, I know all this and I want to share this. But if you do that, you're missing the wisdom of our collective consciousness. If you just listen within, you're going to know everything, but you're going to know it with wisdom. You're going to know what needs to be delivered right now, not the list of stuff that I learned. I just was listening to a podcast with Bill Bauman, and he said, because he's got so many PhDs, it took him 3 years to unlearn. Every time he's like, I know that. He threw it in the trash can so he could unlearn it. That was his thing. 3 years of throwing everything he knew in the trash can. And it's interesting, we all talk about leveling up, right? I'm like, and all these dimensions of consciousness as we go higher, he calls the quantum field the zero dimension. There's no ego. There's no levels. There's just everything and nothing. So you want to level into that by not knowing and just listening to the stillness within. And then I guess I probably should stop because it's after 4:30, but really you are, if you can just listen, you are a jellyfish. I mean, or a butterfly. That's my two favorite things to, when I get stuck, I'm like, nope, jellyfish it or butterfly, because they're just tapped into the earth. Okay, one more slide, Jen. But when you get to that place, you remember that God heals God when God sees God. I really do think we have a particle in. If I'm on the phone with my friends, I'd like open up. I don't have time for your shit today. I'm going to beam you the answer. Open up and receive. And so that's God. I don't know what is in the beam. I just know I can beam it. God heals God, but when you can see God in other people, then you can connect God particles, and you're instantaneously healing. And then that's it. I won't. I'm going to India with Finbar. If you want to come.